What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, so today's video, we're going to be talking about Marauders, number 19 by Jerry Duggan and Stefano Caselli. And in this video, we are going to learn why the Morlocks are allowed to engage in open warfare with humanity when the mutants of Krakoa are not. We're going to talk about all this and more right now, but first, let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple eyes. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
So last we left off, the Verendi had commissioned new Reavers to take on all of the denizens of Lowtown, destroying everything in their wake and kind of openly challenging mutants to nuck if they buck and run up on Madripoor and catch some hands. The problem with this is that Krakoa, they pretty much can't risk running into Madripoor willy-nilly. They can't. It just is something that is going to damage what already fragile alliance they have with the United Nations as it is, but more importantly, could also get anyone who gets involved in this, engaging of open warfare with Reavers in Madripoor. It could easily lead to all of them, and when I say all of them, specifically I'm referring to Callisto, Bishop, Pyro, Iceman, and Captain K Pride. All of them could wind up in the hole right next to Simon Sabretooth Adebisi. And the reason why this is not going to happen is because Callisto is smarter than most anyone else on that boat. She is someone who has led the Morlocks for a long number of years, even though yes, she did lose her leadership to Storm. Storm still entrusted Callisto to lead the people and be what they needed to survive. And when you really get down to it, Callisto knows how to fight dirty without other people knowing exactly what's going on, and that's exactly what she's gonna do. You see, Krakoa cannot get involved because if they do, they rupture the fragile alliance with the United Nations. Like I said earlier, they would lose all diplomatic communities, all sanctions, everything Krakoa has been working for since House of X began would all come crumbling down if any mutants were to be caught fighting against humanity in a place they were already told they're not welcome. Callisto has a better idea, and that is to use the Morlocks. The reason why we're using Morlocks in this situation is because technically speaking, Morlocks are not necessarily aligned with Krakoa. You see, technically Morlocks are allowed on the island, but the entire grouping as a whole, they have been given this kind of an amnesty situation where they don't stay on the island. They don't stay on Krakoa with the other mutants. They stay in Arizona. They stay off the island and kind of in the eyes of the law would technically be seen as not being Krakoan, even though technically they kind of are. The other end of it too is that because they are Morlocks, they can sometimes be easily mistaken for being anything else other than being a mutant. They could even be mistaken for being a garden variety villain of human mutate quality. You never know. And this is something that actually comes up later when the Morlocks do move in to take on the Reavers that are running roughshod in Lowtown, is that people think that these sea monster sewer creatures are coming up from the underground and are trying to kill the Reavers. No one ever really utters the word mutant when they look at them. And Callisto has a gang of mutants that she already has picked out that she thinks are going to be perfect for the job. Namely, she's going to bring in Mask, who we learned in the previous issue has been working as a sort of plastic surgeon at the new free hospital that the mutants of Krakoa have placed in Lowtown, much to the Verendi's dismay. She's also going to be bringing in old Louise Simonson, Rob Liefeld, and Fabian Nicieza classics Hump and Brute, as well as the Morlock Bliss and fan favorite Morlock Marrow. Kate Pride essentially sneaks into Lowtown through their incredibly polluted sewer system thanks to a distraction by the duo of Pyro and Iceman, which is also kind of a nice nod to the fact that these guys have always kind of been at each other's throats in the past and have always been put against each other in the past, but now, under the new way of things, Iceman and Pyro actually work really well together. And while we don't get to see them in action doing anything, to take on these Reavers, we do get word that they worked together to create this amazing ice sculpture distraction that reminds a certain captain on one of the Madripoor boats of something that the Beastie Boys did in concert. They're using this as a distraction so that Kate can sneak in through the polluted water system and place a Krakoan flower so that Callisto can send in the Morlocks to go do dirt. And it's also because initially I thought to myself, why would you send in these specific mutants? But one of the things you kind of have to remember about some of these characters, like Marrow more specifically, is very useful in a fight, and it's probably pretty obvious that Hump and Brute are as well. Mask is a character I've never really thought very much about in terms of like combat prowess, but he actually proves that, yeah, his abilities, he can use them in a crazy number of ways to take on just about any of these Reavers and make them wish they never pulled up on Lowtown. And then, of course, with the character Bliss, who has arguably one of the weirder powers in all of this, her abilities are actually quite useful because even though, yes, the Reavers, their skin in a lot of cases has been replaced by incredibly high density plastics and metals, we have seen in the past that Bliss's mutant tongue is actually capable of piercing even Colossus's metal skin and delivering a poison compound that can actually in many cases be lethal enough to kill, but in this case, she's only doing enough to knock them out. Now, one of the things that actually comes up in this comic in regards to all this too is that even though the Morlocks technically operate outside the normality of Krakoa, technically they're still subject to Krakoa's laws. So if for whatever reason they were to be caught, or if anyone was to be killed, they could potentially face Krakoan justice. There's a point even where Bliss, while she's attacking one of the Reavers, even says she doesn't want to wind up in the hole and is only using one fang of poison, not both. Now, despite all of that and what's going on there, it does still get a little more tricky because Bishop, we do learn, does actually go after the Verendi on his own and take some of the ordnance that Callisto pointed out earlier in the issue. Only in this case, what he's doing is he's going after their Reaver productions. Going after Maximilian, Frankenstein, and even though Maximilian is, not falling for any of Bishop's tough guy shtick, of course he's gonna go on and pontificate about how technically he made no Reavers, or even if he did, he only co-created them, and that the mutants are the ones who actually helped him create the Reavers as they are now by maiming and harming humans and putting them in a position where they would have to get cybernetic enhancements to, be normal, which is the opposite of what he makes them into, but that's neither here nor there. Another reason why Maximilian is very flippant about this is because they know they have the entire place bugged and covered in cameras, so Bishop's activity in this is going to be found out, and they're going to use it against him to destroy everything that Krakoa has worked for. But Bishop, being the smart guy that he is, using that military tactical big brain, he's already broken into the Verendi's base, destroyed all their camera feeds, and this was all while he was setting explosives to destroy their Reaver production facility. This is actually the thing that gets Maximilian's attention, and he does actually destroy the base, destroying everything, so maybe, possibly, Reaver production will be slowed down, but it's all kind of a too little too late situation. Yes, they do save Lowtown, but one of our characters who we've kind of grown to know and maybe become a bit more curious about is a character by the name of I-Tran. She is the woman who, alongside her father, was helping protect and nurse Lockheed back to health when Sebastian Shaw had killed Kate Pride. Well, in the midst of all this, they had recently received money from Kate. Kate had recently, about 2 issues ago in Marauders number 17, given them a huge payout of money, a huge purse full of cold hard cash in return for saving her friend Lockheed. So they have the money, but they're still trapped in Lowtown and they can't get out. And unfortunately, I's father is killed by one of the Reavers before the Morlocks could step in and save them. Now, of course, in the situation with I seems to be handling the loss of her father about as well as anyone would maybe expect of a character whose dad literally just got clapped right in front of them. However, I do get this sneaky suspicion we're going to be seeing a little bit more of I as when we go back to the Princess Bar that Bishop and Iceman bought in the previous issue of Marauders number 18, we see that Marrow actually suggests her maybe she should consider trying to run a bar. Even Mask says something along the same lines that you could always find work here. Now, of course, Krakoa has kind of lost a bit of its foothold in terms of political power in regards to their United Nations standing with Madripoor. However, we do get word from one of the patrons at the Princess Bar that they're not even calling Lowtown anymore. It's now being called Muty Town, which, you know, take that how you want, but no one really seems to be offended in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And more specifically, we even get a little shot here of Bliss even musing about the fact that if it's called Muty Town, they broke it, they bought it, it's theirs. All in all, Krakoa was able to step in with the Lowtown situation, and even though they weren't able to do anything directly themselves, they were able to get the Morlocks, who are theoretically outside agents for all intents and purposes, even though they are still subject to Krakoan law, they were still able to step in under mostly stealthy means and take out the Reavers and stop the threat. And once again, kind of, even though politically, yes, Krakoa has kind of eroded their power over Madripoor, but from a community standpoint and from a public opinion standpoint, they've seemed to kind of work their way back into Madripoor's good graces, even if it's only with its citizens. This is actually kind of a big deal because the people of Lowtown are probably going to be forever grateful to the mutants of Krakoa for saving them when nobody else would. The police weren't stepping in, the military wasn't stepping in, no one was going to come in and save Lowtown. Now we did get a little bit of information when Mask was attacking one of the Reavers, and Mask said that they were not going to let the Reavers burn down the hospital, but the Reaver did actually reveal that they were told to destroy everything but the hospital, which is going to kind of create a little bit of tension between Mask and Callisto, because Callisto basically used the hospital as a bargaining chip, basically telling him that they're going to destroy the one thing that he has been enjoying lately about his new life post House of X. So that's going to create a little bit of tension there, but I don't expect it to be anything too super major. But it does make me wonder why the Verendi didn't want the Reavers to destroy that mutant hospital, because it seemed like when the Verendi were planning their Reaver attack in Marauders number 18, they wanted the entirety of Lowtown taken out. So something tells me that maybe, just maybe, there is something there with that hospital that they want to take advantage of. You got to remember that they did try to steal a shipment of Krakoan drugs and taint them, and though that plan was thwarted, what that could possibly mean is that they see this hospital as an opportunity, maybe another opportunity, to get their hands on Krakoan drugs. So that is also something we may want to consider going down the road. But that said, neither here nor there. I did enjoy this issue. There's a cute little article in the back that's kind of funny. It's not really, I don't think it has anything to do with anything, but you know, most of these issues right now that we're getting in the Reign of X line are basically kind of focusing a little bit of attention towards the Hellfire Gala that's coming up in June, which is going to be very interesting. It's also when we're going to get the revelation of the new and improved X-Men team. There really wasn't anything there. It's mostly an article about Jumbo Carnation and kind of alluding to Jumbo's death and how it's been written off, at least in the eyes of the public opinion, that he didn't die, that he just simply disappeared for a while. Come to find out, one of the things that actually is kind of cute about this article is who it's published by, and more importantly, who Jumbo Carnation has inked a deal with regarding his work in fashion. We see that the Daily Bugle, of course, Spider-Man's old stomping grounds, makes an appearance here, but the thing I thought was more interesting is that Jumbo has inked a deal with Timely Publications. And for those of you who are, not old enough to remember or just don't know it all, period, Timely Publications was the original name of Marvel Comics. See, you learned something probably, or maybe you already knew it and you're gonna be like, duh, Blerd, we knew this already. But anyways, that's everything in this issue that you really need to know. I feel like, yeah, we're gonna kind of learn a little bit more about what's going on with the Verendi and their interest in that Krakoan hospital, the free clinic in Lowtown. I also feel like this is not the end of the Reavers, at least the Verendi variety of the Reavers. I have a sneaky suspicion eventually we're gonna start seeing all of these anti-mutant groups slowly starting to come together because, a lot of their goals are aligning, and more importantly, we're also getting the mention of post-human a little more often. It's brought up even in regards to the Reavers, because technically the Reavers aren't human anymore. They changed enough to where technically they aren't human. They technically are post-human, but when we think of post-humans in this new X-Men era, we think of the Children of the Vault. You don't really think of the Reavers. So it does bring up an interesting situation that, yeah, are these guys more post-human, or are they still closer to being human? This is something that I think, you know, is also going to be brought up and talked about more as we go along with Reign of X and into whatever the next era is beyond that. Either way, I'm here for it. If you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share this video all over the internet with all your friends so they can know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to the X-Men spinoff series Marauders and Reign of X. Also, on your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you thought about Marauders number 19. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.